Take a moment and go back to your childhood in the 70s. Close your eyes if you need to, because I want you to really feel this. The empty house after school, the freedom to roam till sunset, the silence when you came home. No one asked how your day was. No one checked if you were okay. That childhood didn't just pass, it left a permanent mark on you, and today I'm revealing the 7 rare Gen X traits it burned into you. One of these traits is quietly costing you something even now. We'll get to that. Most people think childhood is just something that happened to them, a phase, a memory, something you leave behind when you grow up and move on. But if you grew up in the 1970s, if you were a latchkey kid, a free-range kid, a kid who figured things out alone, then your childhood didn't just pass through you, it built you. The 70s were a different world. No internet, no smartphones, no helicopter parents tracking your every move. What you had instead was space, real space, to grow up in ways that most generations never experienced. And that space created something rare inside you, 7 specific traits that you still carry today in how you think, how you handle people, how you move through life. Some of these traits are your greatest strengths, and some of them you may not even realize are still quietly running in the background of your life right now. Let's go through all 7. Trait number 1, early independence. Here's a scene I want you to remember. You're 10 years old, your bike chain snapped 3 miles from home, no phone, no way to call anyone, and your parents won't even know you're missing for another 2 hours. So you looked at the chain, you looked at the road, and you figured it out. That moment, small as it seems, is exactly where this trait was born. You were left alone a lot. After school, on weekends, during summers that felt like they lasted forever. And in that alone time, nobody handed you solutions. Nobody came running when something went wrong. You fixed things yourself. You found your way home when you got lost. You sorted out arguments with friends, without an adult stepping in to mediate. And after doing that enough times, something locked into place deep inside you, a quiet, unshakable belief that you can handle things, that you don't need someone to come rescue you. That's not a small thing. That's self-reliance at the core level, and it is one of the rarest traits of your generation. But here's the hidden cost: asking for help now feels uncomfortable, almost like weakness, even when you genuinely need it. The hidden strength, though, is this: when everyone around you is panicking, you stay calm. You assess, you move, and that steadiness is rarer than you know. Trait number 2, sharp radar for fake people. Now here's the one that surprises people, because it's the sharpest tool in the Gen X toolkit, and most of you don't even realize how rare it is. You walk into a room and something is off, you feel it before anyone says a word. Someone performs kindness, performs confidence, performs friendship, and your gut quietly flags it before your brain even catches up. You've always had this, but you may never have understood exactly where it came from. It came from the 70s. You grew up in a world that had no filter, no curated highlight reels, no perfectly crafted social media persona. People were exactly who they were: messy, unpolished, real, and you learned to read them that way, at close range, for years on end. What you developed wasn't just instinct. It was a finely tuned sensitivity to inconsistency, to the moments when someone's words don't match their energy, when a smile doesn't reach the eyes, when the story keeps shifting in small ways that most people around you completely miss. So now, in a world that is more manufactured and performed than any time in history, your calibration is still perfectly set to real. That's not cynicism, that's precision. The hidden cost is that it can feel isolating, because when you sense something false in someone and the people around you don't, you either question yourself, or you pull away quietly and no one understands why. But the hidden strength is this: you are genuinely hard to manipulate, and the people who do earn your trust have earned something real. Trait number 3, powerful imagination. Let me take you back to a specific kind of afternoon. It's summer, you've been outside for hours. There's nothing to do, and I mean truly nothing. No screens, no organized activities, just heat and time and a backyard that you've already explored 100 times. And then, slowly, something starts to happen. A stick becomes a sword. The garage becomes a fortress. The neighborhood becomes a map of territories and missions and rules that only your group understands. You didn't consume that afternoon. You built it. That process, boredom turning into creation, emptiness turning into invention, is something today's children almost never experience. Every quiet moment gets filled immediately with content, and the imagination never gets the space it needs to actually kick in. But yours had that space for years, and it built an inner creative engine. That still runs today. When everyone else reaches for a template, you find something original. When the obvious solution fails, you find an unexpected one. That didn't come from talent, it came from those long empty summers when boredom was your only option. The hidden cost here is that the same imagination that creates also overanalyzes, overthinks, and replays. Your mind is rarely truly quiet, but the hidden strength is that you are genuinely resourceful in ways that feel effortless to you, even though to everyone around you it looks like creativity. Trait number 4: deep loyalty. Think about your closest friend from back then. You didn't meet on an app, you didn't follow each other, you just showed up day after day, on the same street, in the same yard, through the same summers and winters and arguments and repairs. That kind of friendship teaches you something that cannot be learned any other way: what it truly means to choose someone, not because it's convenient, not because they're useful, but because they are your person. Gen X adults don't have 100 close friends. They have a few, and those few are chosen for life. If you're in their circle, they will show up for you without being asked. They will not disappear when things get hard, they will not ghost you when life gets inconvenient, and they will not trade the relationship for something easier. That loyalty was built slowly, through time and presence, and it runs deeper than most people today will ever experience. Think about someone from your 70s childhood right now. Are they still in your life? Drop their name in the comments, because I want to see it. The hidden cost is that you stay loyal sometimes past the point it serves you, holding on to people, relationships, and situations long after you should have let go, because leaving feels too much like betrayal. But the hidden strength is that when you commit to someone, a friend, a partner, a team, that commitment is real, and people feel safe with you in a way they can rarely put into words. Trait number 5: strong sense of privacy. Here's a quieter one, but it runs deeper than most people realize. You never grew up watching people perform their grief online. You never saw someone broadcast their arguments for public validation, and you never learned that your pain was something to share for attention. Life was lived and not documented. What happened inside your house, inside your head, inside your relationships, that was yours. Not shameful, just personal, and there was a real dignity in keeping it that way. You still carry that today. It shows up as strong personal boundaries, a genuine discomfort with oversharing, and a quiet resistance to the performative culture that surrounds you, a resistance you can't always explain but always feel. The hidden cost is that people sometimes misread your privacy as distance or coldness, and you carry things alone that you were never meant to carry alone. But the hidden strength is something powerful. In a world where everyone performs everything, your discretion is magnetic, and people trust you with things they tell no one else, because they know without being told that it stays with you. Trait number 6: trust in the real and tangible. Your entire childhood was built on real things. The corner store with that specific smell you still remember, the vinyl record you played until the grooves wore thin, the handwritten letter folded and unfolded so many times it started to tear at the creases, the conversation across a kitchen table, face to face, eye to eye, nowhere else to be, no screen sitting between you. Nothing was mediated, nothing was filtered, and you experienced life directly for years before the world started putting glass between people and everything they touched. That built something inside you that cannot be manufactured, a deep instinct for what is real, what is solid, and what actually matters. This is why a handwritten note still means more to you than a text message, why a real conversation carries more weight than a perfectly worded email, why something about the digital world, for all its convenience, leaves you faintly hollow in a way you can't always explain. In a world that is increasingly artificial, your instinct for the real and tangible is not nostalgia, it's discernment, and it is becoming rarer by the day. The hidden cost is that the digital world moves fast, and you sometimes feel left behind, not because you can't keep up, but because part of you genuinely doesn't want to. The hidden strength is that you build things that last, and when you invest in something, people can feel the difference. Trait number 7: quiet resilience. And now the last one, the deepest one, the one I've been building toward this whole time. Nobody asked if you were okay. I don't mean that dramatically, I mean it literally. You came home to an empty house, and something hard had happened at school, something that today would prompt a meeting with a counselor and a call to your parents and 3 weeks of check-ins. But back then, you walked it off. You sat with it in your room, you processed it on your bike, you stared at the ceiling in the dark, and somewhere in that silence you found a way through it alone, quietly, without anyone guiding you or sitting beside you or telling you it would be okay. No therapy, no emotional check-ins, no adult pulling up a chair and asking how you were really feeling. You learned slowly, without anyone teaching you how to carry your own weight. And here is what that built: an emotional toughness that isn't hardness and isn't an inability to feel. It's the ability to feel something deeply. Grief, fear, disappointment, real loss, and still keep going, without an audience, without falling apart, without needing the world to stop and acknowledge your pain before you can move through it. The hidden cost is the one that matters most. Nobody knows when you're struggling, because you never learned to show it, because back then showing it didn't change anything. So you still carry things in silence that you were never meant to carry alone, and the people who love you sometimes can't reach you because you built those walls before you even knew what walls were. But the hidden strength is this: you have a kind of emotional steadiness that the people around you lean on, often without realizing it. When things fall apart, you don't. And that is not common, that is not small, that is extraordinary. 7 traits. 7 things the 70s burned into you: the self-reliance that came from being left alone, the radar for fake people that came from a world with no filter, the imagination that came from real boredom, the loyalty that came from showing up season after season, the privacy that came from a time when life was lived and not performed, the trust in the real that came from a childhood without screens, and the quiet resilience that came from carrying more than you should have, and doing it anyway, without anyone watching, without anyone asking, without anyone knowing. Here is what I want you to understand about all of it. These traits were never intentionally taught. They were survival skills, developed because nobody was watching, nobody was checking, nobody was coming. You built them in the quiet and the alone and the long empty summers, and you carried them forward into an adulthood that has no idea what went into making you this way. Yet somehow those same survival skills became the strongest parts of who you are today. That is not a small thing, that is extraordinary, and it is entirely yours. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 traits hit closest to home? Was it the radar for fake people, the quiet resilience, the loyalty that goes almost too deep? And which hidden cost did you recognize in yourself, the one you've felt for years but maybe never quite put into words before today? Tell me in the comments, and if you have a memory from your 70s childhood that captures any of this, I want to hear that too. And if you know someone who grew up in the 70s and carries these traits, whether they know it or not, share this with them, because they will recognize every single one. I'll see you in the next one.